Imagine a picture so sharp and so vivid that the finest detail is etched clearly and unforgettably. That's why Kodak makes Kodachrome film, the sharpest color slide film you can buy. As you can see, the sharper you want your memories, the more you need Kodachrome film. From Kodak, America's Storytelling.
Baby love, my baby love, I need you, oh how I need you. Baby love, my baby love, I need you, oh how I need you. But all you do is treat me bad, break my heart and leave me sad. Tell me what did I do wrong to make you stay away so long. Baby love, my baby love, 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 baby love.
My name's Grant Steinley. I'm the general manager here at Dwayne's Photo. We're in a 45,000 square foot processing lab. Kodachrome represents about 15 to 20% of our total business. The way Kodachrome works is it's in 3 dye layers. The dye images are constructed essentially the same way an inkjet printer would because the dye layers are the same: cyan, magenta, and yellow. The way the chemistry knows where to put the dyes is the film's constructed with masking layers. So there are 3 layers that are sensitive to 3 different colors of light. So the dye goes where a certain color of light is exposed to the silver in the film. The advantages are that you only lay dye down where you actually form the image, so there's no extra leftover dye in the film, and that makes the emulsion layer smaller. It gives the film a better resolving power, but more importantly, it contributes to the great archival ability of Kodachrome film. K14 is a 14-step process. It begins with a rimjet bath where we soften the rimjet backing on the Kodachrome film. It then goes through a rotary buffer roller with water where we wash off the rimjet backing. Then we go into a first developer. There's a wash between each of the steps, so there's a first developer, a wash. We then go through a re-exposure lamp where we're shining filtered light, a cyan colored light, onto the film to re-expose it. It then goes into a cyan developer where the cyan dye layer is formed. We then go to a wash and another re-exposure printer where we're shining light to the other side of the film to re-expose the yellow layer. The yellow dye layer is then developed. We go through a wash, we go into the magenta developer where there's a chemical fogging agent that fogs all the remaining silver. The magenta dye layer is formed, and then you have all 3 of the dye layers that make up the color image in Kodachrome film. You go to another wash, you go into the bleach where the silver is turned into a soluble form. You go into the fix where the silver is removed, into a final wash in the dryer, and you have Kodachrome film. The dyes that are used in the process and some of the developing agents too are unique to Kodachrome. Those were only manufactured by Kodak, and Kodak no longer makes them. That's the reason that we're going to stop processing Kodachrome at the end of this year, is that there's no longer the ability to continue to buy the chemicals that it takes to develop the film. Kodachrome is a very resource-intensive process for a lab. You have to be able to have facilities to mix the photographic chemicals from individual chemical components. For most photographic chemistry, you can buy a prepackaged mix, just add water to it, and have the developing solutions you need. For Kodachrome, you have to buy all the individual components, weigh and measure them out, and mix the chemicals. You also need analytical lab support to run a Kodachrome line, so you have to have a person to do chemical analysis. You have to have a small analytical lab facility. Kodachrome is a much more expensive process, and it's more complicated to keep it in control to produce good quality. As the film volumes declined, it just didn't become economic for a lot of people to continue to do it. At the end, we and Kodak were the only people who were still running labs, and Kodak decided it was more advantageous for them to discontinue the operation themselves and subcontract it to us versus continuing to run their own labs in the US and in Europe. I think it was just that, we were standing in the right place at the right time. I don't think, there was anything magical about us. Their lab was in New Jersey and we're here in Kansas, and we had a lower cost structure just because of our overhead and our labor costs versus being in New Jersey. We're the last people left out there doing it, so we get to aggregate all the volume from really a large part of the world. I mean, Kodachrome was the first color film. Before Kodachrome, to get to see a picture of yourself in color, you had to hire an artist to paint one for you. So Kodachrome has been, tremendously influential throughout the 20th century in terms of being the first film and in terms of the really, iconic images that were captured on it. It was very complex, so there were fewer people processing it, and because processing was limited, there were fewer people who wanted to shoot it, and so I think it was a self-reinforcing system that, once there were fewer and fewer people, then there was less and less film shot, and as less and less film was shot, there were fewer and fewer people to process it, and so yeah, I think some of the things that made Kodachrome special are the same reasons why it's going away now. I mean, Kodachrome's got a different dye set than every other film, so the way it captures color is slightly different from other films, and I think it gives you a rich, warm image that you don't get certainly with many other reversal films. I mean, we're going to be very sad that Kodachrome's over. I'm not sure what we're going to do to commemorate it on the last day of processing, but we're going to be sorry to see it go.